Then the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tablets, that he may run that reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry.
When the MDC was formed, we had a vision of providing people with the necessary freedoms to explore opportunities and dreams in a free environment. And when we formed the MDC, we were facing a real political crisis in the country. And therefore, the conclusion of the National Working People's Convention was that we should actually provide people with an alternative movement, because the movement that liberated us had failed.
Oh, 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 oh.
When Zimbabwe gained independence, it was an envy of many. Some even termed it the jewel of Africa. With a well-diversified economy and a sound economic base, Zimbabwe was poised for growth. Growth was realized in the early years of independence, but due to corruption, ill-conceived policies, repression, nepotism and anarchy, the wheels started coming off.
Bad leadership, you're going to have bad policies, you're going to have bad implementation, bad execution, and you're going to have a disaster. And this is what we've seen in the last 33 years. Complete, moronic, idiotic, disastrous policies by ZANU-PF.
A solution was needed. A solution to rescue the people of Zimbabwe from a deep abyss of uncertainty. The MDC came up with policies that defined a clear path to a future of abundance, growth, and real transformation.
Enough is enough. We don't want to go back to that situation.
But for 2018, we shall govern.
We have always campaigned on the basis that what Zimbabwe needs is real change. And what does that change mean? It means that if you are an unemployed person, your real change expectation and aspiration is to have a job. For somebody who has no health facility, it means that the real change and transformation is that health delivery system must be efficient. Everyone must access that health delivery.
It is the role of government to make sure that you give clean water to your people. It is the role of government to make sure that you give your people, clean water and sanitation.
If you are a learner in school, your real change aspiration is to be able to get good teachers, to be able to have books, to be able to advance.
In 2008, after ZANU-PF suppressed the people's will and hung on to power, the country's shattered economy could no longer contain the burden of the over 13 million citizens.
No sane Zimbabwean across the political divide would like to degenerate to the level we had reached in 2008.
So these guys are failures, failures, failures. Food, you know it, there was absolutely no food in the shelves. And what was in the shelves only was water and firewood, nothing else. And that was the ZANU-PF balance sheet. We saw the total collapse of this economy, the total meltdown. Between 1997 and 2008, this economy lost 60% of its value. By 2008, inflation was 500 billion percent. Growth rate was minus 14%. Per capita income was as little as US $220, with 85% of our people surviving on less than 35 cents, 35 cents, a day. There was a closure of schools, closure of hospitals, and total collapse of the social services. Look at the maternal mortality rates, look at the infant mortality rates. So total disaster. ZANU-PF redefined the word failure.
As mothers, as women, we are the ones who carried the burden. There was no food, no fuel, hospitals closed, our children were not going to school, schools were closed. We had cholera, people dying because we did not have clean water.
It took the intervention of the MDC to rescue a dire situation. Never again should the people of Zimbabwe be exposed to hunger. Never again should the citizens of this country be forced to live in destitution. It should never happen that the people have no say in the operations of their government.
4 years ago, after a disputed election, we formed the inclusive government. But this was just a transitional measure to try to accommodate the crisis. But even with that potential discord, you have to understand that when we came into the coalition government, we actually added the value of resolving a lot of people's problems. The first one being the state of the economy. The hyperinflation conditions we expected have now been reduced to a normal economy with 3% inflation. Goods are now available, and businesses have actually succeeded because of these policy interventions.
Well, the first thing that we have done miraculously is the stabilization of this economy, the stopping of the hemorrhage. We decapitated hyperinflation. We put food back in the supermarkets. We increased capacity utilization from as little as 2% to as high as 80 to 100% where it is now. And we did this through the short-term emergency recovery program STEP. By the end of 2009, our inflation in Zimbabwe was minus 7.7% from 500 billion %. In 2009, our growth rate was 7.7% from minus 14%. Agricultural production, tobacco, for instance, was 32,000 kilograms. In 2009, we had 120 million kilograms. Maize, 220,000 metric tons. In 2009, 1.4 million kilograms. So we rebuilt this economy and we set it on a trajectory of growth. In a way, what we did was miraculous. It has never been done in the history of the world, that you recover so rapidly in such a short period of time.
If you go to health, we set up the Health Transition Fund, which now allows people to have access. The hospitals, Harare Hospital, Mpilo Hospital, all these referral hospitals had collapsed.
The MDC got into government for fundamentally 3 reasons. The first one was to ameliorate the violence that had happened in Zimbabwe. The second one was to improve the economic well-being of the people of Zimbabwe. And the third one was to come up with a people-driven democratic constitution.
On 16 March 2013, millions of Zimbabweans turned out to endorse the new people-driven constitution because it provides a framework from which policies are crafted. The MDC believes the season for growth, jobs, upliftment, investment, and sustainability is here. Real transformation is upon us.
The MDC emphasizes, as part of its ideology, emphasizes on equality, freedom, justice, peace, and democracy. All these are enshrined in this law. The MDC is a social democratic party that emphasizes on the rights of the individual, the right of the individual to dual citizenship if they are Zimbabweans by birth, the rights of women, the rights of children, the rights of students.
The MDC has a vision and is seized with the desire of seeing transformation and development, particularly in rural areas.
One of the biggest challenges we are going to face as an MDC government is how to make the rural areas green again, the so-called green revolution. It has to be spearheaded by investing in making sure that we have a spread of rural irrigation systems, drip irrigation, overhead irrigation, because without that, we will continue to have serious food deficit. I think what is important is infrastructure in the rural areas, whether it is schools, hospitals, roads, whatever. That infrastructure has to be upgraded. A lot of people have accused us, hey, you don't have policies. How can you form such a formidable movement without policies? What drove us to form this alternative movement to ZANU-PF was the desire to see a better Zimbabwe, was the desire to see a prosperous Zimbabwe, was the desire to make sure that Zimbabwe is counted amongst some of the progressive industrialized countries in Africa.
At the launch of the medium-term plan, President Tsvangirai bemoaned the lack of policy consistency in the inclusive government as it is hostile to development.
Because whilst one is promoting wealth, the other one is undermining wealth. I have been to a number of international conferences, and you are confronted with this policy discord. What is the policy of government? What is the future? Because that gives people confidence.
The MTP replaced step 2. Remember, with step 1 and step 2. And the MTP is our medium-term plan. All these are MDC documents. They seek to underscore the country's democratic developmental trajectory, which is also the MDC's stated movement. So I think we are on the right direction. And what remains is for Morgan Tsvangirai and the MDC to be given a mandate to implement what their programs. They've shown in the last 5 years, under exceptionally, excruciatingly difficult circumstances, that we can do it.
We are part of the global economy, and as Africa is emerging out of this pessimism, is going into this optimism, Zimbabwe must ride on that crest. We used to be a very thriving economy, a thriving country. We want to go back to that.
As the MDC, we want to ensure that the lives of women change because their dignity has been taken away from them. So we want to make sure that we reinstate or we restore, the status of women politically, economically, and socially.
The time has come for the people of Zimbabwe to claim their destiny and dignity. This election, more than any other, is about taking this country forward with a compassionate government, a government that puts the desires, hopes and aspirations of its people first. With a loving government, everything is possible.
We need to go to an election, and this election needs to give a singular mandate to a singular leader, Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, so that he can pursue the MDC's agenda for transformation.
We are moving from a period of dictatorship, a period of oppression, to a period of freedom, peace and justice.
The greatest lesson of the last 5 years of the inclusive government is that to govern means love, and that ultimately to govern is to be governed. You have to respect the people, and the people have to govern you. That's the lesson we have learned, which is a lesson that you don't learn in any textbook.
So, in summary, what real change means is that it is a departure. It is a departure, it is a new narrative, a very positive narrative for the people of Zimbabwe, because they have expectations, whose expectations have been frustrated over the last 10 or 15 years.
Oh! 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 Oh!
MDC 2013, towards real transformation.